According to a 2012 study conducted by Katerina Spineris, Michael Denhoff, and Julie Kellaway entitled Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder in United States Corrections Professionals, Prevalence and Impact on Health and Functioning, roughly 31% of correctional officers experience post-traumatic stress disorder. This is an alarmingly high statistic. However, it is not surprising that correctional officers are experiencing this disorder and similar disorders, considering the amount of stress officers deal with on a daily basis. It is important to first recognize the stressors that correctional officers face in order to gain a better understanding of what is causing these types of disorders. Even if you are not a corrections officer yourself, it is still important to understand the stresses that they face. Not only because you may know someone who is, but also because you are a taxpayer and should understand some of the problems government employees, specifically corrections officers, experience while providing an essential service to you and I. Today I will be telling you about the 3 main types of stress correctional officers face on a daily basis. First, I will explain the organizational stress. Next, the mental stresses. And finally, we will discuss the physical stresses that correctional officers face daily. Organizational stress among correctional staff is mostly caused by conflicting interests. In our modern-day correction system, there are many different goals. Some want the purpose to be retribution, others rehabilitation. When there is no clear goal, it can cause stress and frustration amongst the staff. Officers are not sure what role to play because the whole system lacks a clear mission. In the book, Prisons Today and Tomorrow, Jocelyn Pollock explains this role conflict. She states that officers must act as enforcers and punishers, as well as assisters in rehabilitation, which immediately causes disillusionment and frustration amongst personnel. Pollock also blames much of this frustration and stress on the prison administrators. It is the prison administrators, she says, who are constantly changing prison goals, policies, and procedures. This makes it almost impossible for the officers to fulfill their duties, because their duties are constantly changing. This instability can generate problems between the staff and administration members. The staff does not feel supported by the administrators, and the administrators feel the staff is not fulfilling their duties. According to Pollock, this leads to burnout amongst the officers and cynicism amongst the administration. Unless the prison administrators work to relieve some of the organizational stress, the correctional officers will continue to become overstressed, which will negatively affect their health. It is not only organizational stress they face, however. It is also mental stress. Correctional officers also suffer from mental stress. This is probably caused by the long periods of time they spend in jail or prison. Even though they get to go home at the end of their shift, they are very similar to the inmates. They too are behind the prison walls for the majority of their day and experiencing many of the same hardships that the inmates do. In the article Working Behind the Wall, retrieved on May 17, 2015 on psycholive.org, Bonnie Sultan stated the odor, the sounds, and the violence looming all takes a toll on a person. An officer is constantly on guard, which can cause him to become anxious. This stress can lead to even more severe mental disorders. This mental stress can cause them to develop many of the same mental disorders inmates do. In the same article, Bonnie Sultan cited a study conducted by Dr. John Rogers, which revealed a great deal of officers experience feelings of depression, anxiety, hopelessness, and even suicide. In the same study, it was found that 20% of the officers surveyed reported an inability to find pleasure in anything. It is very hard to believe that someone could not find happiness in anything. However, these officers reported that they did not. This takes a large toll on their relationships with friends and family members. Many of these disorders are very serious and can lead to many problems for a corrections officer. It can cause instability in their homes because they have a lack of motivation. This instability in the home can increase mental stress, increasing the severity of the disorder and the possibility of death. Working in a prison is not for everyone. Unless an officer can learn to cope with the mental stresses of being locked up all day or night, the stress will overcome him or her to the point professional help is necessary. But that is not the end of their stress. They also experience physical stresses. Correctional officers experience physical stress in a variety of ways, the most obvious being the physical attacks from inmates. These attacks occur on a regular basis in most prisons. Not only do officers have to worry about being beaten up, stabbed, and possibly killed, they also have to watch out for inmates throwing bodily fluids at them. Officers must be constantly alert. This constant alertness can cause other physical problems. According to the same study conducted by Dr. Rogers on PsychoLive.com, correctional officers frequently experience headaches, fatigue, migraines, changes in appetite, and shortness of breath. All the stress officers face can be attributed to these conditions. In the study, some officers even admitted to abusing prescription medication in hopes of reducing these conditions. The physical stress officers face is very serious, sometimes to the point of death. Corrections officers face an extreme amount of stress on a daily basis. If it is not managed properly, disorders will occur. Then, professional help will be necessary in coping with the different disorders, and in learning to manage with the different stresses related to working in a prison. We have now just discussed the three main types of stress correctional officers face. We talked about the organizational stress officers face from a lack of stability and support from the administration, the mental stress that occurs from working in a prison, and the physical stress correctional officers face on a daily basis.